Welcome to the Pain Waves podcast by Pain BC, the show where listeners can tune in and hear from leading experts on persistent pain as we discuss the very latest pain management research, stories, tools, and trends. I'm your host, Catherine Sutton, part of Pain BC's communications team. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about Pain BC for first-time listeners. Pain BC is a collaborative, nonprofit organization made up of people in pain, healthcare providers, and leaders from universities, government, business, and the nonprofit sector. We share a passion for reducing the burden of pain while creating awareness of this common problem. Living with chronic pain can be debilitating, demoralizing, and isolating. Providing care for those in pain can be frustrating and confusing. At Pain BC, we aim to change this. Let's talk about pain honestly and remove the stigma. Nobody should be alone with pain. To learn more, please visit our website, painbc.ca. Please remember, the content provided on our show is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or care. We encourage you to seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider if you have any questions regarding the content of this show. Susan Johnston is an RN who has been practicing since 1986. She spent the first 19 years of her career as a bedside nurse in leukemia and bone marrow transplant and has been a nurse educator for the past 6 years. Susan has experience in geriatrics and rural nursing and is presently the nurse educator for Vancouver Coastal Health's OASIS program, which helps people with osteoarthritis self-manage their condition. Susan has also been living with chronic pain for more than 20 years, which has informed her interest in holistic approaches to pain management. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Yeah. So first off, can you tell me a little bit about your work with the OASIS program?
Sure. I work 3 days a week, and in that time period, I try to do at least 2 to 3 classes per week. One on pain management, specific to osteoarthritis, another on sleep and stress management. And then I also teach with my colleagues a prehab class. So this is for people who are about a year out for a surgical replacement, and giving them a quick synopsis of how to best prepare for surgery, including pain management. And I also teach pole walking with my colleagues, which is a wonderful way of offloading the joint, a painful joint, and getting exercise. I primarily work in an office where I am right now, and then I work throughout the Vancouver Coastal Health region. So in Richmond, I hold classes in Richmond, Vancouver, North Shore, and we occasionally go to Sechelt and Powell River.
Fantastic. That's great. And what were some of the most important things for a person with osteoarthritis to know about pain management?
I guess a big thing is really figuring out what triggers the pain and then figuring out how to manage it best. I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize with osteoarthritis is that they have to keep moving. They can't be sitting around just because it's too painful. They have to manage the pain and get moving. Pain often tells us, or what the purpose of pain, particularly acute pain, is to tell us to back away and take care of ourselves. And that's more like you break a bone or you cut yourself or something like that. But with osteoarthritic pain, it's actually a false alarm. The cartilage in the joint is worn away and exposing the bone underneath. And bone has lots of nerve endings, whereas cartilage has none. And people often think that they're damaging the bone because they can feel it now. And the truth is, this bone is very resilient, far more resilient, obviously, than cartilage. So the idea that they need to keep moving, but they need to manage their pain in order to do that. I think that's one of the biggest things about managing pain with osteoarthritis. The other is weight management. For every extra pound we carry is an extra 4 pounds through the hips and 6 pounds through the knees. So if you're carrying an extra 10 pounds, that's 60 pounds through your painful knees. So the better your weight is managed, the less pain you will have. And exercise, once again, comes into that.
Fantastic. And are there certain types of exercise that you tend to recommend?
Yeah, anything in water. Absolutely anything in water, because water allows you to be buoyant. So if you're in water up to your waist, you offload your lower joints by 50%. If you're in water up to your neck, that's as high as 90%. So someone with a really painful hip, for example, in water up to their chest may not feel their hip at all and is able to move freely. That's why aquasize classes or any kind of exercise in water is highly, highly recommended. Another one would be a stationary bike. With a stationary bike, all your weight is going through your middle and your leg can move freely on the stationary bike, and it's a great way. You don't have to leave your home to do this kind of exercise. And the last would be using walking poles and going for a walk. You do want to avoid high impact type exercises, but walking, needless to say, is easy, and just being able to offload the joint can be extremely helpful.
Fantastic. And so what are some of the biggest challenges you see in people living with pain?
I would say just like when you have a lot of pain, it's hard to get motivated, particularly when it's like, oh, you should be exercising, but it's too painful. I think one of the biggest barriers is a lack of information about really good, proper use of medication and people's fears around medication. I hear it all the time of, I'm afraid to take pills. And my counter-argument to that is, are you afraid of a depleted immune system? Are you afraid of infections after surgery? Are you afraid of not sleeping well? Because these are the things that get impacted if your pain isn't managed properly. So I think those are some of the biggest things.
And how can a patient work towards greater acceptance of their situation? It can be quite difficult to accept that this is something you have to live with.
Yeah, I think that is the truth, and it's something that I talk about in my stress and sleep management class about acceptance. And I teach about that concept of acceptance because when we don't accept something, we have no control over it. It controls us. If we just ignore it, it doesn't, and osteoarthritis doesn't go away. Once you have it until the joint is replaced, basically. But when you deny something, you don't have power over it. But once you accept it, once you really accept that this is what's going on, then you can start seeking out solutions and supports to make life more comfortable and be able to do the things you want to do. I think that's also a big component of inspiring people is like, oh, you love to garden, but you find that you can't garden because of this disability. Well, let's make that happen and work together, because it's typically a very multimodal approach to making that happen.
Fantastic. And how does your own experience of chronic pain inform your work?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I would say, one, it helps that I can relate to the people I'm teaching. I can use my own stories as illustrations of how pain and stress have affected my levels of pain and how I've managed pain. I'm also a huge advocate of meditation and cognitive therapy, because both of those things have been massive components to my recovery and ongoing management of my pain. It also has allowed me to explore other avenues that I normally wouldn't have looked at, such as medical cannabis as a way to manage pain, because I, like many people, do not ever want to use an opioid if I don't have to. So that has also informed how I approach pain management.
And so for people who are maybe interested but don't know much about it, what would you say, high level, that a person living with pain to think about when it comes to medical cannabis?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Could you tell me a little bit about what a person living in pain needs to know about medical cannabis? What should they understand?
That it is a medicine. That
Mm-hmm.
it is a medicine like any other. I think that the big problem with cannabis is that it's been so stigmatized and by governments primarily and pharmaceutical companies. I always tell people the reason why pharmaceutical companies haven't done any research on this medicine is because you don't have to buy it. You can literally grow it yourself. So they have no vested interest per se in researching this unless they're going to make a synthetic cannabinoid. But now that there's a lot more information out there. There's a lot more scientists doing research on it, that we're getting more and more information about it and how incredibly versatile this particular medication is. The other thing I also like to tell people is that you don't, particularly for osteoarthritic pain, is you don't have to consume it. You can get it in a salve or an ointment and rub it on an area, and you can get very good pain control using this kind of cream. So just really educating them on, different access, how to use it, so you don't have to get high off of it, nor will you get intoxicated from that. And also, if you do need to use it, that you can really control the dosage by using a vaporizer. You can very much control how much you're taking. And with more education, with legalization and licensing, people who are growing it, those kind of things, and making it more and more safer and more specific on what's in the plant, then that gives way more options for people to use it in various ways for various ailments and concerns.
Fantastic. Are there other holistic approaches to pain management that you are interested in or advocate for?
Well, meditation for sure. That concept of that pain, stress, and sleep are all interlinked, and that when we can dial the volume down on our nervous system, so when we can de-stress or distract ourselves or calm ourselves enough so that we can sleep properly, what ends up happening is we have less pain, we have less stress, and we sleep better. So definitely meditation is something that I think everybody should do, not just people with pain, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But that's one thing. And the other is the benefits of any kind of exercise and any kind of outdoor activity. So getting enough UV light so you can produce enough serotonin in your brain, which produces melatonin, which allows you to sleep better, which also makes you feel better. That exercise produces endorphins, which actually are painkillers that actually make you feel better. All of these things that I think we innately know, but they are work and they are practice. You have to practice meditation and you have to more or less practice exercise. So it's about changing habits and really what's most important. So yeah, those two things are the other things that I think that are need to be more in the forefront.
Fantastic. You teach classes on self-management. Can you speak to why self-management is such an important tool towards pain management?
I just believe that education is power. It empowers you to be your own advocate. Also, your physician isn't necessarily, your GP isn't necessarily a specialist in pain or a specialist in whatever it is that you have complaints about or your disorder. So then you have to wait for specialists, and then, and the medical profession is, it is that. It's very focused on medication. Though I think there's some there's certainly, if you're lucky enough, there's certain doctors who are able to approach pain management more holistically. But the more empowered you are, the more you are active in managing your pain, the less pain you will have. I firmly believe that. I'm a living example of that. I didn't go the medication route. I went through therapy. I did yoga. I saw physiotherapists. I exercised a lot. And I occasionally used cannabis creams for muscle tension and bone pain, these kind of things. But I learned all of that myself and applied it to myself. And so when I do have a painful episode, I know what to do about it. I don't have to go running off to the doctor. The more empowered you are, I think the better equipped you are to manage situations that might be previously been a lot scarier to you as well. So I just think it's the way of all forms of health. The more you know about what is best for you, the best physician you will be for yourself.
Fantastic. Do you have any specific advice for people who maybe have a harder time speaking up or asserting their own needs? It's not natural to them.
Sure, yeah. In my pain class, I teach about what I call a pain diary. Now, I know with Pain BC, you guys got the Live Plan B, which
That's
I
right.
also highly recommend to people listening because it is a fantastic, fantastic tool. I use something that's similar to that, the ideas on that site, and I call it a pain diary. And what this does is help you not only track what triggers your pain and what helps manage the pain, it also helps you track how much medication you're taking so you can keep track of the totals. So if you're taking lots of Tylenol, for example. But the other thing the pain diary does is it allows you to track everything, and it's something that you can take to your healthcare practitioner, that you can say, here, this is what I'm doing. This is what happens. This is what I take. This is what kind of works. And it wasn't enough, so I tried this. And it gives you a really clear picture of what you've been doing, and it's not just, oh, it's kind of sore. I talk about really describing your pain, like is it sharp, is it dull, is it achy, is it hot, those kind of words, and using a pain scale of 1 to 10. And including that all in the pain diary. So you start an activity, you write down your 1 to 10 scale, any other details. What do you do before the activity so you can avoid pain? So maybe you take a couple of Tylenol arthritis. Maybe you use walking poles and you go for a walk. You come back from the walk, you ice it, and the pain subsides within an hour. That sounds like pretty good pain management. But then the next day that doesn't work, and you're not too sure why, and you just keep track of it. So this is a tool that you can give to your doctor. If you're not someone who really knows how to speak about these things, you can literally hand them a piece of paper with all the information on it.
Great. What advice do you have for people who are interested in a broad approach to pain management but feel overwhelmed by how many options there are?
Well, with osteoarthritis, we always talk about starting with Tylenol arthritis formula. So we do start with like a bottom line, the safest medication if you take it correctly. It's safe to take with other medications. So I think that's where you start, is least side effects, least contraindications with other medication, and keep it simple. And then focus on things like managing the pain so you can do something. So if you want to go exercise, then you manage the pain. Now, if the exercise alone manages the pain, fantastic. But I say start off simple, and then as you progress through that and that doesn't work, then you try the next step up, which would be a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, or maybe you need a prescription cream or to add to the Tylenol arthritis. So rather than starting big, start simple and then build from there.
Fantastic. Do you have any suggestions for people who perhaps have a limited amount of time or money? Where should they start?
Limited amount of time or money? Well, if it's osteoarthritis you're dealing with, contact go to oasis.vch.ca. There is tons of resources there. All our classes listed on our schedule are free. And there's lots of links and information there, as is on Pain BC. So access to that is easy and free. As for limited time, there's basic information out there. I guess that's where you start. But if it's really, I think that pain management, if it's really interrupting your life, needs to be a priority. It needs to be on the list of things that you need to handle. I know it's inconvenient, but it's also a reality, and it's about that acceptance. And once you accept it, then you can do something about it and make time for it. But there's lots and lots of free information out there. And the cheapest place to start in terms of what you're going to spend your money on, Tylenol Arthritis Formula is pretty inexpensive.
Fantastic. Great. And in terms of if people don't live in the Lower Mainland, are there any other programs in BC that you would direct people towards, or any other resources?
Unfortunately, OASIS is only in Vancouver Coastal Health, but our web access, of course, is readily available, and people outside Vancouver Coastal Health can come in and come to our classes. That's not a problem. As for outside, the Arthritis Society has programs, usually local programs run by volunteers, but unfortunately, to be honest, there's not as much direct education out there as there is in Vancouver Coastal Health, particularly related to osteoarthritis. I honestly think one of the best resources for people that don't have it in their community is the computer, Pain BC, and Live Plan B. Those resources are fantastic.
Fantastic. That's great. And is there anything else that you want to make sure that people understand or know about this subject?
I think we've kind of covered it. I think the biggest thing I say is get knowledge, get informed. Don't be afraid to ask questions. No question is stupid. we need to answer those questions. It's okay, and then get empowered. Get empowered and make sure you manage that pain so you can enjoy your life.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Pain Waves Podcast. Stay up to date with all of our content by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or on Spreaker.com.